Hi Cass,
Hi.
how are you doing?
Good. Yeah.
So will you tell us a bit about yourself?
Uh, okay. I'm a linguistics student. I go to University of York, um, and that's where I live as well because I stayed here over the summer. And I'm here visiting Manchester for a weekend. And staying with you one night and a different friend the next night. Yeah.
So what did you do today?
What did I do today? Okay, well, it wasn't like a very normal day, otherwise I wouldn't like have this on my shoulder. As part of my job in York, I was helping out with the Bloom Festival. That's why I got a giant pink shirt on. It says B for Bloom. It's a 4-day festival of flowers and wildlife that's been happening all across the city, and they've got like talks and exhibitions and stuff. And I was just helping with one of the stalls that my boss was running. And so what I did was I went and handed out leaflets in the city centre, which was fun because no one wants to take a leaflet from a random person. And then I got told off by the Minster police, and so I had to go somewhere else. And then a weird guy followed me around the square, so I had to go somewhere else. And, so that was all fun. And then they gave me a free lunch, which was nice. And then what did I do in the afternoon? I did like nothing. Like no one came by to our exhibit, so I was just sat there getting paid to sit on a chair, which was great. And then I went from my work to the station and got a train, came to Manchester for the first time ever. Got really confused by all the different stations, as you witnessed through text. And they gave me at the Bloom Festival all these stickers and Colin the sticky thing. And so that is why I've got those on. And yeah, and then I came to Manchester for the first time ever, and I really like it so far. And that's what I did today.
What is your regular day like?
My regular day, like during term time, or?
It's up to you. What is regular for you?
Okay. Well, like, I've just started working at an internship where a regular day, like it's early days, so it's hard to say, but a regular day is 9 to 5 in an office, but also going out into the city a bit. So I don't know, I'd wake up at like 7, get ready for the day, head out at like 8:30, walk into work. It's about a half-hour walk. Work until like until lunchtime. Try and do something interesting in my lunch hour, but it doesn't work because there's too many crowds in the city. But like, went to the library, felt very academic because I was in the library in my lunch hour because I'm fun like that. And then go back and work until 5, then go home. And I've been like so tired after work, which sounds like silly because you're just working in an office sitting down, but it's quite draining. So I'd get back and just like immediately get into pajamas, and then people would be like, "Are you free?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm really busy." But I wasn't busy, I was just on my sofa watching things on Netflix. And then I do a couple of hours of like stuff for a Wild magazine, like editing articles and like sending emails, and then I would like just chill for like the last hour of the day and then go to bed. So I guess that's a regular day in the internship, which isn't very regular in itself because it's so early. Yeah.
Will you tell us more about Wild magazine?
Yes. Okay. So Wild is a student magazine. It's national and it's online, and it's about being sustainable on a student budget. So basically, I started it because I wanted to be more ethical and eco-friendly, and I'm broke all the time. And I got into this habit of only buying my clothes secondhand, and I realised that it doesn't just save me money, but it's also like helping the environment because it's reducing waste, and you're not paying money to like fast fashion corporations that might be manufacturing their clothes in like factories where the working conditions are terrible. So I was like, well, that's a plus for everyone involved. And so then I was like, well, I should be more ethical in general. But my friends who are like super ethical are also kind of the stereotypical like hippie vegan types, like they're really full on. And it was like, I was quite afraid to like ask them questions because it was really intimidating. So I was like, there should be like a magazine for people that aren't that kind of stereotype of super hippie that is often associated with ethics, and it's just like ways that being eco-friendly can actually save you money as well. So we publish like articles on pretty much anything to do with the environment. There's like a wildlife section with stuff about nature and pollution, and I was just writing an article about a guy who's done a waste management app for how people can make money off their recycling in the Philippines. So it's all stuff like that. Or there's a food and drink section where people write about debates like, do you have to be vegan to be eco-friendly? Like, I'm not vegan, but it's a big debate currently, and it's very interesting to hear different sides of it and to learn more about it. And then there's I can't believe I've forgotten my own magazine sections. There's a lifestyle section for just like reducing plastic usage and like everything. Like we got cruelty-free makeup article, 10 ways to make your shopping more eco-friendly, stuff like that. And then there's a politics section, which is more about current affairs and like actual debates in the news, which is really important because of how much is happening in the news with like the plastic straw campaign, and people care a lot more about the environment lately. There's much more like public awareness of the issues around the environment, and all these new campaigns to get rid of like plastic straws, plastic packaging, supermarkets getting rid of best before dates, like Tesco did that recently. Like, people are thinking about it a lot more, and even people that say they don't know much about the environment, you know, if you ask them, they will have a lot of opinions. So yeah, Wild publishes everything about the environment, and it's all written by students. Sometimes we feature ethical businesses as well, like local ones or small businesses. And yeah, it's quite recent. We came up with the idea in January and started publishing articles in March. So it's still like quite small, but it's growing, and people do seem to be interested in it. So that's good. So that's Wild.
What's the biggest lesson you learned from just starting Wild?
That's a good question. I mean, it's helped me all around, like just the work put into like running a magazine and getting it set up. Like, I feel like I've developed a lot of skills. I'd like to go into the media after uni, and this is really good preparation for that. But like on a more general level, I realize that the more I learn about the environment, and this is going to sound really like cheesy, but the more I learn and the more people I talk to, the more I realize that I don't know anything. Like, I don't know anything about anything. And the people that I try and get involved in Wild, they'll be like environmental experts, and they're like, they've got a whole business around sustainability, or they study environmental science, and they will know so much, and I can learn from them. And I joined like a billion Facebook groups about the environment. I joined a lot of vegan Facebook groups, which was slightly intimidating because now my Facebook feed is all vegan news. But I learned so much just from it being there on my newsfeed all the time. That I feel like I am just learning a lot, but also learning that there is so much left to learn. And I realised that my role is more to like coordinate all the people that know more than me and get their work published, and I'm just there like behind the scenes making sure everything gets published in time. But if someone asks me questions about sustainability, like, that's stressful still. But I do also care more now than I did, And that sounds weird because obviously I made the decision to start a magazine about ethics, but it was also very much about wanting to save money. But the more you hear about the issues, the more you do genuinely care. And you don't realise how much you've learned until someone makes the mistake of bringing it up. And I had the chance to interview the previous leader of the Green Party, Natalie Bennett, and that was really interesting. And she was talking about fossil fuels and sustainable development, and it was a level of politics I hadn't even considered before, that sustainability isn't just about making sure you don't use plastic or putting your paper in the recycling bin or something like that. It's about finding solutions to fossil fuels and climate change that aren't just sustainable environmentally but also politically and socially. Because if you've got a community that makes all its income off like the local fishing business, and then you go to them and you say, oh, you can't fish, the oceans are like, they're running out of fish and you're going to destroy the planet. Well, that doesn't help them, because then how is that fishing community going to generate an income? How are they going to make a living for themselves? So you've got to find a solution that takes into account these social aspects and political aspects, that you need change to be systemic and sustainable on all levels. And sustainability isn't just about the planet, it's about like everything. Obviously the end goal is to have a planet we can still live on, but you can't just go in there and tell everyone stop using plastic unless you can find a way to implement that change. So I thought that was quite interesting. So yeah, that was a bit off topic from the question, but yeah, the most I learn is how much there is left to learn.
What were you like as a baby? Like, what was baby Cass like? What were you like as a child?
I probably cried a lot and like went to sleep. But like, and after being a baby and moving on to being able to walk, I guess, I was very, very shy. I was really quiet. I read a lot of books. I collected horse toys obsessively. I didn't even play with them. I arranged them in height order. I was a real fun kid. I had like a box of 100 mini horse figures, and my idea of a fun time was to arrange them in height order and then to destroy the pile and do it again, or color coordinate the groups of horses. But yeah, I was really shy, and I mainly just like stayed on my own. Like I had a couple of friends, but I was super introverted, and I mainly just read books. Yeah.
What are you most thankful for?
I don't know. I've had that question before, but I just get really conceptual. I'm like, what is thankful? I guess I'm aware of how lucky I am for just being born in the place that I was, and in a like globally speaking, I'm like in a great safe country with great opportunities. I was like born middle class, like never really had to struggle very much, like as far as people go. If you compare it like to people across the world, I'm just very, very lucky to be born in the place and in the time that I was, and I grew up in a very nice town, a very good town to grow up in. So I think that's an experience that a lot of people don't have. So I'm thankful for that. I don't know really. I guess just I always try and be very aware of not sound too millennial, but my privilege. That compared to most people, like the amount of obstacles in my life have been few. And a lot of people have it a lot harder to get to the place that they want to be, and society's geared up to make it easy for people in like my demographic to achieve the goals that they want to achieve. Not to say that it's handed to you on a plate, but you're never made to feel like you can't achieve the things that you want. And I think a lot of people from like worse off backgrounds or from different backgrounds don't grow up with that sense that they can be whatever they want to be. So I'm lucky for that. Yeah.
What do you like to do for fun?
I do Wild for fun. Wild magazine for fun, I guess. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I am choosing to spend my time on it. But I guess that's kind of work though. I like to just like, oh god, what do I do for fun? This is really sad. I like to try different cafes. I like to go around York, which has like so many different independent cafes, and me and a friend of mine, all through term time, we had a thing where each week we tried to find a weird looking cafe and we just tried it spontaneously. And over the last like year or so, I've got a lot more spontaneous and a lot more interested in just randomly trying new places or going, oh, that looks interesting, or go and have a look. So I can just like explore a place like for ages. And I like history, so I like going to like on days out to places where there'll be old castles, castle ruins. Whitby's an amazing place. I went on Whitby for a day out. That was really cool. Not relevant. And I mean, everyone likes watching Netflix, but I do also like watching Netflix. And yeah, I do photography sometimes, but I don't really have a fancy camera, so it's mainly like on my phone. But I'm in the photo sock at York, and I do like that. And I try and take photos of everything because, well, not everything, but anything interesting, because I realised how many like things I do that I didn't take any photos of, and then later you start to forget the details or you forget that you did it. So I started taking photos of all the like different things I do, or places that I've been, just to remember them. So yeah, that's what I do for fun. I guess it's not that exciting, but I don't know. Yeah.
Why linguistics?
Because, well, I didn't always do linguistics, so I switched degrees halfway through, and I started off doing modern languages, and the main language there was Spanish. And I realised that I wasn't that interested in specific modern languages. Like, I'm really glad that I have studied modern languages and that I have like that ability. But I'm more interested in language as a concept, like the fact that people can communicate and that people have invented these super complicated systems of like speech and writing just to communicate with each other, and the different ways that communication has evolved. I find that really interesting, just on a more like overarching level of communication, because then you get into philosophical debates like what is language, like why does every community across the planet like develop its own form of communication, and why are they so different, and language changes according to like historical events, and you get like words that come by as a result of things that happen in the past. So language kind of reflects the history of a place, I think. Like, not to sound too like, I don't know what I would even say there, not to sound too like pretentious, but through studying a language, you can kind of trace the history of the culture of the people that speak it. Like, if you go through the English language and you look at where the words come from, and the different like slang words and the grammar and how it's evolved, it all links back to things that have happened in history. Like, we have mainly Norman French vocab, because of French people invading in 1066, and because they invaded in 1066, we're still using some words today as a direct result of that. So like over 10 centuries, we've kept that influence, and I just think that's really interesting, and I like tracing that. My particular interest is historical linguistics, as you can probably tell, but there is a lot more to language as well. There's like how your brain processes language. How do we recognize that like a sound has actual meaning rather than just being a sound? Or like we studied like bilingualism, How do kids grow up learning to speak 2 languages? How do they know that they're learning 2 languages at once? Like when all they've got is just sound. So it's just questions like that I really like, and that's why I like linguistics. Yeah.
What is something that you wish you could do? Maybe a skill or...
That I wish I... Oh, well, just the other day, like, for fun, because I'm just such a fun person, saying this out loud now. I was looking up free courses that you can do online, because I always want to be, like, working towards some kind of course or qualification or learning something. So, I mean, I want to, like, learn all the languages and, like, do all the courses, but I would like to pick up more language skills, even just basic ones, improve the Spanish, improve my photography skills, maybe pick up some more like employable skills, like get some impressive sounding courses in like social media marketing or something like that, which I know that sounds really boring, but I just think it would be really useful and probably surprisingly interesting if you're like me. And yeah, I want to learn everything. I'm a bit of a nerd. I'd like to be better at understanding like politics and kind of current affairs and be able to talk more intelligently about those, because when I get into a conversation with someone that actually knows about politics, it doesn't go well. Like, I realise that I don't really understand enough, and I think it's so important for people to be aware. They don't have to be experts, but for people to understand the political situation of the country or the places where they're eligible to vote, because so many people they don't know, or they just learn the basics off Facebook. They believe what their friends post, and this is true like for anyone on all sides of the political spectrum. Like, we're too keen to believe things that fit our worldview, and it's too easy to ignore things that don't fit in with our view of the world or what we want to believe. And social media doesn't help this at all. And tabloid papers and things, they feed into this. So I think like developing critical thinking and actually learning the facts and being able to evaluate for yourself what is best, not what your family or your friends or your social media feed says is best, is really important. So yeah, I always want to know more about politics, and because through knowing what you're talking about, you're also able to make more of a direct change. Because if you say you care about an issue but you can't explain it in depth, then you don't have as much power, because people tear apart your argument just through pointing out inaccuracies in what you said. So yeah, I want to always be in the know, basically. It's quite a journalistic thing to say, but yeah.
Why journalism? Something that you
I don't know if I want to be strictly like a journalist, like a breaking news kind of stereotypical journalist, but I like using written media. I like communicating a message. It all links into language, I think, because writing and journalism are all about using your language ability to pick the right words and phrase things in the right way, in the most efficient way to get a message across. And just through changing the language that you use, you can change the whole tone of like an article, or persuade people a certain way, or explain things more clearly, or it just matters a lot. And I like to use that to explain issues more like succinctly and like improve communication. And I guess that leads me towards journalism, because I think that it's so important to be aware of current affairs, and particularly like sustainability and global affairs, and like development, international development, and humanitarian causes in general. Like breaking news on its own doesn't massively interest me as a career. Like, it's important, but I don't want to be the person that's always like just announcing what's happened, which is a really important job, but it's not what personally interests me. I would prefer to use written skills and communication skills to talk about issues that I really care about. So whether that would be like doing media and press for like a charity, or communications for some kind of humanitarian organisation, some kind of overlap there. I like the idea of journalist, I think, on some kind of slightly egotistical way, because then a lot of people will read what I've written. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to help the causes that you believe in. God, I never realised how idealistic that sounds until I say it out loud. But I think it's me trying to apply my idealistic like interests, but in a practical way. So yeah, that is why journalism.
What is one thing that you wish you could change about the world? One thing, anything
about the world. I mean, not to keep like repeating the same thing, but to be sustainable as a planet, because I think there are so many issues that matter in the world, so many like human rights issues, and just war and terrorism and starvation and all those terrible, awful things that need to be addressed. But at the end of the day, if we're all dead because of climate change, how are you going to address the other issues? Like, we're literally dead. The planet is dead. So if the planet is not around, then the other issues become redundant just through our own human extinction. Not to be too dramatic, but like, that is kind of the state of things. So yeah, it would have to be a sustainable planet. So then we have plenty more time to address the other issues and more kind of human issues. I mean, sustainability is a human issue, it's a human problem, but like, yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you about your name?
Yeah,
or no?
sure. I keep leaning on this. So everyone calls me Cass. It's a nickname. My like legal name, I guess you saw it, my name before the nickname is Julia, and people that knew me like growing up and my family call me Julia, but everyone at uni calls me Cass. It comes from trying to get away from people in London trying to sign me up to stuff, because I used to go to uni in London and there was always someone standing by the door, like the entrance, trying to sign you up to things, and they're very aggressive. And it became easier just to give them fake details and pretend to sign up than to try and make them go away. And then I already liked the name Cass, and I used it on like usernames and like online and everything, so it was the obvious choice. And then it just became a nickname, and then I was like, I like it as a name, so now I kind of use it as my name, and it confuses people sometimes, but I don't know, I think it's nice to be able to choose your own name, because like when I started using it, because it got to a stage where so many people were saying it, I just started introducing myself as Cass, and I was like, it's my name now, fine. And people are like, no, that's not your name. But I think if anyone has the final say on what, you know, my name is, it would be me, not anyone else. And it's strange that that's not people's mentality, but yeah, that's the confusion that is my name. Yeah, and no one ever knows what to call me. It's quite funny. I just let them flounder. Like, I could clarify, I could choose, I could be like, oh, call me Cass, but instead I just let them kind of go, hey, you? And I'm like, yep, that's me. But yeah.
What is one thing you can't go without doing?
Can't go without doing, like, in what context? Like,
in any context you could think of. It could be something you like eating, it could be something you do on a daily basis, or something in your bag.
I like, this is so British, but like every day, cup of tea. It's like, it's so it's just so British. It's like any situation, it's like, oh, should we put the kettle on? It's just so automatic. Days that I don't have a cup of tea, they're not good days, honestly. It was really bad. Even when I went abroad, every day, cup of tea. And yeah, I guess that's just a very English thing. I hardly know anyone that doesn't make tea all the time. And people that don't make tea all the time, we don't associate with them. No, like, yeah, so I guess that sometimes I think about how many cups of tea I have in a day and it scares me. But it's quite a classic part of English culture, I guess. So I guess that's not very unique to me, but it is a thing I do every day. What else? I don't know, like, I'm not very attached to like items or anything. I don't really have that much stuff. Yeah, I get into like routines, but then after a certain point I just kind of stop the routine and it doesn't last very long. Yeah, I don't know. Am I really gonna go with tea on my final answer? Like, what can't I go without? Yes, I am. Good cup of tea. Like, and I'm talking like like a proper like normal English like breakfast tea, or it can be Earl Grey. I will go out on a limb. This is an area of controversy, but I do like some Earl Grey. And yeah, herbal teas are like, they don't factor in, like they're fine, but they're not the cup of tea. Oh, I sound so British. I'm living up to a stereotype. I am a stereotype. Yeah.
What is your superpower look like?
My superpower. I was going to say I don't have a superpower, but then several different friends told me I have a superpower for finding free stuff and for getting into weird situations. I'm not sure I like these reputations because my reputation is a freeloader and like an eccentric freeloader. Great. But I don't know. I guess I do seem to. I think because I'm very curious all the time, and I am more likely to just kind of go in and start asking questions about things, or I'll see like a sign that's got an arrow on it with like no words, and I'll just follow the arrow. This is why I'm gonna die, like, because I'd be the easiest person to hunt down and murder, because they'd just be like, come downstairs, and I'd be like, okay. So yeah, I guess that way I get into a lot of situations where I didn't expect to be doing a particular thing that day. Like today, I ended up climbing a massive tree, like with a harness, just because there were some guys doing like tree climbing sessions as part of the festival, and there was nothing going on our stalls, so they were like, do you want to climb the tree? And I was like, okay. So they put me in like this massive harness. It was like a big, like giant oak tree like thing. So then I was just like up this tree, and that was fun. But yeah, I didn't expect that. And then people are always like, how did you end up in a tree? I'm like, well, someone asked if I wanted to go up the tree. It's never actually a story that is that interesting, but I guess being curious, like, I find a lot of interesting things. So yeah. And I like to think, because I'm interested in like food waste, people just give me a lot of free food or like free stuff in general, and I'm fine with that. And if anyone is watching this and has free stuff that they want to give away, they should send it to me, because I'm broke. Yeah. Okay, that ended sadly. But yeah, yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
In 10 years, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I like to think I'd have some career doing like what I said before, like using media. I don't know if I want to be a journalist, or if I want to use written media in a different form. I'd like to be like maybe an investigative journalist, like where I get to research an issue in depth, or like write for a magazine where you get to explore a topic in more detail than a breaking news story. But obviously that's a really difficult career to get into, so just anything where I can use written communication and have a varied day. I don't want to have like a strict 9-to-5 job in my life. I feel like I'm the kind of person I need to have a job that I'm like very passionate about, and it might consume my life. I can see myself being the kind of person that like lives for their work in a very sad kind of way, but only because it will be something that I really care about. I don't know. I'd like to live in the north of England, or just anywhere like not in a huge city, because I'm not a city person. So I have no idea where I would be, but hopefully somewhere nice, and hopefully not flat sharing with strangers, but you know, won't aim too high. And I don't know. I like to think that I would look back on myself now and be incredibly embarrassed and be like, oh God, I knew nothing then. I can't believe I said that, because I want to keep learning. And if I'm going to keep learning, then I have to accept that I'm like pretty stupid right now. And in 10 years, I'll still be stupid, but hopefully know more things. So yeah, I think it's a good sign of growth that you can look back on past you and be like, God, that's so embarrassing, because that means that you've like developed as a person. So in 10 years, I hope to be embarrassed by everything I said in this video right now, basically. Yeah.
So yeah. So if you could change things in the world, would you like to change? More than one. Or
more than what? I mean, there's the classic answers of like, I don't want war, I don't want hunger, I don't want poverty. But like, you'd have to be a bit of a psycho to not want those things to end. I would like there to be more tolerance. Maybe if I like focus on more like regional level, I'd like there to be more tolerance in the UK. I'd like there to be less of a divide in Britain, because right now, like, everyone says that the UK is so divided in so many different ways. You've got this kind of the rich and the poor, the Brexiters and the Remainers, and the crazy liberals and the insane conservatives, and like there's just so much polarization and demonization of both sides, and we tend to forget the fact that we're a very small country and we are actually all quite similar, and like the north and the south, and the south getting all the funding, all the government attention, and rural areas being neglected, things like that. You need more of a like a conciliation of both sides. Like, politically, the media likes to pretend that the UK is split down the middle, and on one side you've got like millennials like us, so like airy-fairy liberals, and we just want everything to be politically correct, and extreme left, and then we get like patronized as like not knowing what we're talking about or being too idealistic. But then the same way liberals will turn around and point at old people and say, you're conservatives, or you don't understand anything about the modern day, or you don't want a good future for us. And that's not true, because the older generation, well, they are as varied as the younger generation, and they also have a lot more experience, and they have seen maybe 40 or 50 years of politics in the country. And then people in our age range are so keen to dismiss what they're saying as just like, oh, old-fashioned conservative types, when actually you can learn something valuable even from people that are not on the same like political side as yourself, or that have a very different background. Just because you disagree with someone politically, not to sound like that I'm lecturing anyone, but like, just because you disagree with someone politically, or they have old-fashioned views, or they say things that you're like, oh, you're not allowed to say that now, you know, you can't use that word. Yeah, you're allowed to say that to them, but you should also accept that they're just from a different time, and that you're gonna learn something from them as well. If someone asks me like, Why do you vote left wing? What about what happened in the 90s? I don't know what to say because I don't know 90s politics, and older people will know better. So it needs to be more understanding of both sides, not just talking to people that agree with you, which I think everyone is guilty of, because it's like a natural human thing. You surround yourself with people that think the same things as you, and then you treat that as evidence that you're right. But actually you should listen to everyone, even people that have views that you might find offensive or shocking, because you don't have to be converted to their line of thinking. You just have to understand why they think the way they do, even if it's a result of their background. Because if you just dismiss people with other views as like insane, or oh, they just don't know anything about it, then how are you ever going to change anyone's mind, or how are you ever going to have meaningful debate? So yeah, I would like there to be less of a divide, however real or artificial, in the UK. I'm just focusing on the UK because I feel like that's more specific than saying like I want everyone to hold hands and be happy, because everyone says that. So yeah, everyone unite. United Kingdom. I'm going to stop saying that now.
What does happiness mean to you?
Oh, that's deep. That's very deep. Happiness would be being like satisfied with your life, feeling like fulfilled, like yeah, just feeling like you are where you want to be and that you have control over your own choices. I mean, it's like a very philosophical question. You could get into a whole like philosophical debate there, or you could if I could remember my philosophy A level, which I can't. Like, I think people aren't happy when they feel trapped in their circumstances, even if they don't have a bad life. If you feel like you can't change an aspect of your life and that it's being decided for you, I think that is very counterintuitive to people, and that makes you unhappy. Like, if you think, oh, I'm from a poor background and I will never be able to get out of this town, even if it's a nice town, like how, like that would make it a struggle to feel fulfilled. I don't know, I'm just speculating here, but I think, yeah, happiness would be feeling like you have control over your own life choices. It doesn't mean that everything has to be going great, but just like, yeah, that you feel like it is your life, maybe. I don't know. I'll let you know. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, don't feel like you have to like force questions. Like, I know I talked quite a lot already.
No, it's not about that. It's just
Okay.
I just want to talk more, but I can't do anything. It's so interesting. Oh my god, seriously.
Really?
Yes.
I feel like
you have a lot to say.
Definitely. Yeah.
Oh.
And you're also like, you know what you're saying, kind of, even though you said that you don't really know what you're saying, but it's like, you've really thought about a lot of these things that you've been talking about, and I think it's kind of refreshing to see someone kind of, you have kind of a refined answer because you've thought about the things that you care about. So
Maybe I just like lecture a lot of people a lot of the time. I don't know. The thing is, I don't know anything about anything. Like, I might change my views in the future, or like I realize that I was really like super naive. So yeah, I try and be very, very open-minded. I'm very cautious about giving my opinions because I know that they might change, but I guess that's fine as long as I acknowledge that. So yeah, I'm glad that I'm not like totally boring.
okay, to kind of end this interview, if you could give one piece of advice to us, to yourself, watching this in 10 years, feeling embarrassed about everything, to anyone watching, what advice would you give?
What advice would I give? Like, one thing that stuck with me a lot that I heard years ago is that fact which gets cited a lot, that people say they regret the things they didn't do in life a lot more than the things that they did do. And in my experience, that is true. And so if you just start saying like yes to stuff and like opportunities as they arise, and just like everything, just like you see like a new cafe, then just like go there. Or just you see a street you haven't been down, then just like go down that street, because you do regret the things you don't try more than things you do. Even if you end up having like the most boring time or the worst coffee ever, like at least you know, and it can be a funny story. So like, yeah, just I don't know, because if anyone would like to give me some life advice, that would be very well appreciated. But in my experience, like just trying new things and trying anything and saying yes to things, even things you think aren't like you at all, and varying things up and changing everything, like it will be more interesting. And I think that helps break out of the monotony. If you have like a very routine life, then you start to feel like you're just going through the motions. But if you like vary up even in small ways, like I don't know, decide you're gonna get something unusual for lunch today, something from like a food market rather than a Tesco meal deal, then it encourages you to think outside the box in other areas of your life. I say this, I don't know, this just works for me, so maybe it works for other people too. But yeah, just say yes to things more. That would be my advice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kath.
No worries.